Hello everyone, CS Worked here, and in front of me are the two one-chunk based furnace rays. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and demonstrate, starting with the Entityless design. We see there's nothing in the output chest here. For the input, I will use oak logs and make a double chest, but first let me do a tick freeze so that we can get the rates of this demonstrated as well. And it will run for 750 seconds because we are at dropper speed, so do a tick sprint for 750 seconds. And we can see it running in action here. The copper bulbs are showing where items are currently being smelted in the furnaces, and you can tell that it's kind of noisy with all the droppers running, but we are going at dropper speed, so 18,000 items per hour, meaning from start to finish it'll take 750 seconds because the initial startup time, and a lot of the time at the end is going to be waiting for items to end up in the output chest here. That's going to put us at 0.21 hours, and perfectly timed. So there's our double chest of charcoal from the logs. And we see that the MSPT is considerably unharmed by this. The other design is the Kartarray. It does use entities, so it does take that into consideration. And let's go ahead and clear the input chest here. Place a double chest of oak logs here, and this one will only take 460 seconds. So again, 460 seconds. And we see the odd motion of the hopper minecart as tick sprinting really messes with the animations. But we see that it is running considerably faster than the other one was. And it will not have an equal distribution on the two sides here because of how the array is set up. So we'll end up with 56 left over here. And we put it in this chest all together. We see complete double chest at the end of the tick sprint. So we end up with 460 seconds to smelt a double chest of items. I'd say that's pretty good. Now, let's unfreeze the game and start explaining. Now, the Entityless design is a modified version of the KK Knowledge design I showcased in my previous furnace array video. And instead of using the double observer to zero tick a stick a piston to zero tick a block of redstone to lock the hopper, it's using a single observer to pulse a copper bulb for the comparator to read and then lock the hopper. That shaves one block off the side and cuts back on the resources considerably. I also decided to turn the observer clock to the side here instead of sticking out the front, so we no longer have the input chest wrapping around that. That was kind of weird. And also, on the side here, I have fuel input chests every 14th furnace. Now, that's because of my previous video where I explained how fuel distribution works with a hopper line. We can only supply 12.5 furnaces with a line of sticks, and I am using sticks now because we are able to craft them automatically using bamboo or any type of farm with the crafter in 1.21. So sticks are the more optimal design because we have to wait for the observer to detect the changing state of the furnace, and if we're using a fuel that has much greater time than it takes to smelt, we'll end up with a whole bunch of wasted time, and we need even more furnaces in the array here. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, you said 12.5 furnaces, but here you're using 13. And that is true. So every hour or two, you'll end up losing enough sticks out of this line of hoppers, and then another hour later, you'll end up losing the sticks from this buffer line, and then another bit later, you'll end up completely out of fuel in the furnace. So if you run this design with them spaced out every 14th, you'll end up You just need to stop for like 5 minutes every 2 or so hours. It's not the worst thing in the world. Or you could just space them out every 13th line, put the input every 13th furnace, but because there are 54 in this design, this is 54 blocks long, it is equal if you have every 14th, if you put it on every 14th furnace. So how do we make this into a one chunk design? All we have to do is simply bend it. So now instead of going straight, we just go up, to the side, bring it back, to the side, bring it back out, bring it to the side again, and back down. And all of this is able to clearly fit within one chunk here, including the fuel input chests here, and the input chest of the actual items to be smelted. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, this looks even longer than 13. And you're right, this is 14 hoppers long, and I put the input chest, the fuel input on the far side. You could put it in the center here and just have it go both directions, but I wanted to look a little bit cleaner for the video here. Now, same premise as before, we're observing the change in the state of the furnace, and we're just having the copper bulb get pulsed for the comparators to lock all of these hoppers. So we are using quasi-power to power these dispensers. So in case you're wondering if this works on the Bedrock edition, the answer is yes, it does. I did have to make another modification because we're not able to use quasi-power on droppers. I had a observer line 2 blocks above for another observer to look at that observer line to power the dropper indirectly with a block in between. If you have the observer 1 block down to directly power the dropper, it does cause issues. But yes, this design does now work on the Bedrock edition. And if we go ahead and bend it like we did in Java, we are able to squeeze it all into one chunk. I have a armor stand here with a plugin to show the chunk boundaries here. So once again, it all fits within the one chunk, even having the fuel line on the back here. However, there is a slight issue, that is to say, the dropper speed on Bedrock is slightly slower than on Java. So instead of taking the 0.21 hours, it now takes like 0.28. It's not the worst thing in the world, but do keep in mind that it is going to be slightly slower if you're building this on the Bedrock edition. So now you might be thinking, hold on, 750 seconds or 0.21 hours, that still seems like quite a bit of time it takes to smelt a double chest of items, and the only thing I can do is compare it to what people typically run at. So most people will have a double chest over 2 furnaces, so that brings up to 720 items per hour, bringing a total of 4.8 hours to smelt a double chest. That's 24 times the amount it takes for this furnace array. I prefer myself to use a chest boat over 6 furnaces. At 3 times the speed, that brings us down to 1.6 hours. Even if you go to 8 furnaces from a single chest boat or multiple hopper minecarts, that brings you down to 1.2 hours. Still 6 times the amount of time it takes as this furnace array. All things considered, this is not that bad. But what if you want to go faster? And for that, I made the Kartarray over here. Now this is using powered rails, which travel at 8 meters per second. So a furnace that takes 10 seconds to smelt would make us ideally have 80 furnaces in the array, which I did. And that brings us to 28.8 thousand items per hour when we multiply it out. And so looking at the full time it takes to smelt a double chest, 460 seconds, you might be thinking, that seems a little bit high as well. Well, that's also because we have a 12-second startup time before the first hopper minecart is out and running. And we also do not have it equally divisible by 80 set for the double chest here. That's why there are 8 items left over in the bottom corner here. Meaning we have to wait another 10 seconds for one more cycle of the furnaces. Bringing us to 460 seconds, as I showed in the tick sprint earlier. Now this design, I think, is slightly better than this one. However, because it is using hopper minecarts, there's the chance that something gets in the way and breaks it all, which is why I do prefer the Entityless design myself. It does look really compact, but if you were wondering if this works on Bedrock Edition, with quite a bit of tinkering, yes, I was able to get the Kartarray to work on the Bedrock Edition. There were 2 significant changes needed. First, I had to develop a cart eater just for the Bedrock Edition, and I used a soul flame 2 blocks below where the rail is, and then there's another rail here. There's a non-zero chance though that when the cart breaks, it falls backwards into the fire and destroys the hopper minecart, and does not get collected into the hopper here. However, that is a very small chance. After running a couple hundred carts, I'd say it's less than 1%, but it is still possible, meaning you will occasionally have to refill this with more hopper minecarts. And the other significant change is down here on the back end. On the Java edition, I took the torch output from here, of this side of the etho hopper clock, and it would go 9 repeaters at max delay into the powered rail. However, on the Bedrock edition, I'm running from the opposite side of the etho hopper clock, running into 7 repeaters at max delay and 1 at the first delay. That is because the hopper minecart on the Bedrock edition is running at half the speed as Java. Why? Who thought to make it half the speed? Explain. There's no reason for it not to be at 20 items per second. But with that being said, we're just dispensing the cart a little bit earlier then, and it is able to collect the 80 items and run through here no problem. So with that all taken into consideration, it should be at 28,000 items per hour. I have no way of easily testing this because there's no tick freezing and sprinting on Bedrock, please add. But using a external timer and filling up a double chest and waiting for the last items to trickle into the chests here, I was able to determine that yes, it does end up at roughly the 28,000 items per hour, or 460 seconds that it took for the Java edition. Oh yeah, I forgot to show that this all fits in one chunk, so let's go ahead and open up the chunk boundaries. we see here that it fits on this side, everything fits on this side, and on this side. In the back, there's quite a bit of empty space. In fact, we don't even go up to the chunk wall here. Okay. Now, you might still not be happy with 460 seconds, or about 7 minutes, to smelt an entire double chest of items. So how do we go even faster from here? Well, the keen eye amongst you may have noticed that I built the input chest on the border of the chunk here, and that there just so happens to be no interference over here that would prevent me from putting 2 of these right next to each other. In fact, the Entityless design just so happens to have the input chest on the corner of the chunk here, and the 2 edges of that chunk don't have anything that would interfere, so we could actually put 4 of these next to each other. And that's exactly what I did in the back here. So to explain what I did, is the Entityless design will now take 2 hopper minecarts. Oh no. However, they're not moving, so if we encase them in glass, nothing will happen. 2 hopper minecarts to pull items to distribute into 8 hoppers to go into 4 different arrays. Now what you can't do is stack multiple hopper minecarts into a pyramid shape. I was able to do that here by having multiple hopper minecarts stacked on top of one another so that these hopper minecarts could have a chance to pull items from this area. But a design like this took me a couple hours to build, even in creative mode. Only has 32 furnaces, which limits us to 11.5 thousand items per hour, which takes 0.3 hours to smelt a double chest. There's not going to be any startup time because we're just going to go very quickly from top down to bottom here, almost like 5 ticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, about 5 ticks. So it is about 50% slower than the Entityless design, but it is an absolute pain to build. And on top of that, I would highly not recommend it because even the slightest nudge will break the entire thing if one of these hopper minecarts fall out of place. So, going over to the 4 times Entityless design that is no longer Entityless, we have here a setup where I just have the structure block, mirror it, and then I copied that and mirrored it again. So we have 4 all together. And a single input chest here, meaning 4 times the 18,000 brings us up to 72,000 items per hour. And a 215 second smelt time, bringing us down to 0.06 hours for a double chest. I'll go ahead and demonstrate this. Let me make sure the chests here are empty. Oh, and this one has stuff in it, so let me pick block, clear that out. Okay, and we'll go ahead and make sure I don't have anything in my inventory here. I will go ahead and tick freeze, break the chest here, place the one of the oak logs, and fill out the rest of this so I don't break the sign. Okay. Now, we only need 215 seconds to smelt this, so again, take sprint for 215 seconds. And we see all 4 furnace arrays running in sync. And because they're all chunk independent, even if we unload part of this furnace array, it will not break. That's pretty good. You may have also noticed that they were not technically in sync. That is because you're not going to have a perfect distribution from the hopper minecart. But after the tick sprint, our MSBT was not all that far off. We ended up with a chest worth over here. And I'm assuming we have a chest worth over here as well. Yes, we do. And like that, we have a double chest smelted in 215 seconds, or 0.06 hours. That is pretty fast. In fact, we're starting to hit the limit of what is really possible here. Now, this design does not have a input method. I just lazily placed a double chest on top of 2 hopper minecarts here. So if you actually want to utilize that 72,000 items per hour, you'd have to manually be throwing the items into this double chest. I'm sure someone could figure out a way to have a shulker box unloader placed right here so that when it breaks, it goes over some like packed dice here and then into the collection bin. But yeah, I didn't bother coming up with that. It seems a little bit excessive even for me. But what if we wanted to go faster? Well, before we do that, we do need to look at the double Kartarray. Because while it is not as fast, it is still considerably fast. So doubling the 28.8 thousand items, that brings us up to 57.6 thousand items per hour, and from start to finish, a double chest will take 250 seconds, or 0.069 hours. Now this design is literally copy-pasted. Technically in the back here, we could have simplified from having a double clock system to only having one, but I was lazy and didn't feel like adjusting that. And to demonstrate how all of this works, we have the output chests here. Okay, this one needs cleared as well. Oh, game is still frozen. Okay. And the rest of these are clear. Alright. So now I will break the chest and make a double chest of logs. Clear my inventory. Okay. And now let's do a tick sprint for the 250 seconds. Oh, tick sprint, 250 seconds. And once again, the animation of the hopper minecarts looks kind of weird because tick sprinting really is messing with it. But we are once again running at a considerably fast speed. I'll consolidate all of these output chests into one because they can't. A single line of hoppers cannot keep up with them. And just like that, we have a double chest of smelted items. Perfect. Now, this design is ever so slightly, I can unfreeze the game, is ever so slightly slower than the quad Entityless design. That is no longer Entityless. However, at 250 seconds, just over 4 minutes for a double chest, it's still pretty good. It's also half the sizes of the other one and not nearly as noisy. I'd say if you wanted to build either one of these two, the double Kartarray is probably the way to go. Now, you might be thinking, how do we go even faster from here though? I want to smelt more items even faster. And to you delusional and crazy people, I got just the answer. Let me teleport back to the main platform here. Our limit isn't so much how fast we're able to move the hopper minecarts around, but the actual hopper minecart itself. It has a limit of 320 items, so even if we gave all of those items their own independent furnace, that brings us up to 115.2 thousand items per hour. Ilmango has already made a design like this, so he's beaten me to the punch. However, that puts us at 108 seconds or 0.03 hours to smelt a double chest of items mid-cycle. That does not include any startup time or item collection. Taking that into consideration, I'll give it a little bit bump up to 0.035, which puts us just about at half the speed of the double Kartarray. Now that makes sense because the double Kartarray is literally half the speed of this one, 57.6 thousand items per hour. Doubled is 115.2 thousand. And so our limit now is the capacity of the hopper minecart, or a single hopper minecart. You might be tempted to use a chest boat right in the minecart. However, in order to push the items into the chest boat, we will need 6.4 droppers, or rounding up to 7 droppers, running constantly at dropper speed to reach that 115,000 items per hour, which is going to get kind of annoying to do. So what do? We stack multiple hopper minecarts on top of each other. Then our issue isn't so much the amount that we have in the hopper minecarts, it's how we're pulling them. Because they take 1 item per tick or 20 items per second, it takes 16 seconds to fill an entire hopper minecart if it's pulling from a chest inventory. Now, if the items are in entity form, sitting on the ground, it will only take 5 ticks because, well, it's grabbing an entire stack every tick. Meaning, our limit isn't going to be the hopper minecart, but how we're feeding the hopper minecart. And most people would use a shulker box. Shulker boxes are just chests that take 1,728 items, so that gives us a sign. That is to say, if we give each and every item inside the shulker box its own furnace, that brings us up to 622,080 items per hour. And once again, Ilmango has already done this. However, his design is very complex. Credit to him. However, it can be simplified. And again, putting this into perspective, there's no need to, if we have a furnace for every item in the shulker box to smelt a double chest, we just double it, so 20 seconds, not including any startup time or collection. Now, what do we do from here? Well, that will be for part 2. If you don't want to stick around for the tutorial, that's all I got for today, so thanks for watching. Goodbye. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is find the center line of a chunk, and then go near one of the borders, and this is where our output chest will be. Okay, and now we'll go out 1 block, and then back 14. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14. Okay, and now we'll go out 4 blocks. 2, 3, 4. And then back again. 5 blocks. So that we should be 1 block away from the chunk boundary here. And all the way back again. There'll be 2 blocks before you hit the chunk boundary. And then same thing on the other side. Okay. And now we'll fill this out with furnaces. And you can have them facing any which direction. I'll have them facing outward away from the comparators, towards where the fuel line will be. Need my doors. Okay, and now what we're going to do is build a line of observers looking at those furnaces on both sides. And same thing on the other side. Okay, now we'll take solid blocks and place them in front or between the observers. And now we will take a copper bulb and place it on top of those solid blocks. A wax copper bulb is going to not have any additional ticking because it's not going to be checking for being oxidized. Not that I think that will cause any sort of issues. Okay, and then from each of those, we're going to have a comparator facing outward towards the furnace. Actually, on the front one here, we are going to skip over this one because this is where our input chest will be. And on the back one here, we also technically don't need to have a reading method, because we can just have a direct pointing down into this one. Okay, and now we're going to put a hopper on top of and on the side of each of the furnaces. One for fuel, one for the item distribution. And at the end of the fuel line, I'm even going to use a clay pot to not have as much hoppers. And one last side. Okay, now from here we're going to take a dropper and start right where the end here would be, facing towards the main chain here. And we're going to go in a snaking pattern all the way around. When we get to the end here, we can actually turn it this way. And when we get to this side, we can start heading back. And at this side, we can turn to the side again. Again, we can rotate it. And rotate it one last time. And we end up at the clay pot. Now what we'll do is we'll do the observer chain. So I will add a detection system right here. Anytime we have a item inside of the chest here, we'll have a output right from the comparator for the sticky piston to push the observer up, so that we have a observer reading right here. And we'll just make sure that we go we'll do the opposite of what we did on the corners for the dispensers. So we'll go all the way to the back and then we'll turn. And of course, if you're on Bedrock, you're actually going to make this a couple blocks higher with the solid block here, with a block with an observer looking down before you start your observer chain. But on Java Edition, with quasi power, it can be this low down. Now, so what I had to do to make sure we power some of these corner droppers is go out one and into the side. From this corner, we'll go out one into the side, out there into the side. Same thing on this corner, out from here into the side. Now this one, we won't have a way to power this dropper or this dispenser, same method, so we'll just be observing this observer. And then lastly in the back here, reading this side, into the back, reading the back, into the side. And now we can actually start up the observer chain and see, make sure we go all the way around. And it looks like that's working. Okay, so now all I've done, now the only thing left to do is to cover up some of these hoppers to make sure no items fall into them. And for the input lines, again, I made the line into the back here. You could obviously make it into the center section here, but again, that is completely up to you. And with that, the entire design is complete. If you want to cover these gaps, you can also put a few extra blocks in, but they are not necessary. To build the Kartarray, you once again want to find the center line of the chunk, go out 2 blocks from the edge, and place a double chest. We can hide the chunk boundaries, and now we will go 9 blocks out behind each of those. And now we will go out 5 blocks. No, 6 blocks. So that we are 1 block away from the chunk boundary. 4 blocks. My bad. We'll place furnaces on top of each of those. I'll have them facing outwards towards the fuel input lines. And now we will place a hopper on top of and on the side of each of the furnaces. And in the back, we're going to add a couple extra furnaces. There will be 1 right here, 2 right here, 2 right here in the gaps, 2 right here in the gaps, and then 1 more right here. And what we'll do is we'll send the fuel input line directly into all of those furnaces. And at this point, we can cover up most of these input lines so that we are not accidentally dropping items into them while we are building the rest of the machine. I'm using transparent blocks so that no signal will pass through them if we place any redstone on top. And I should mention that these hoppers, or that these back furnaces should also have a hopper on top of them. Now, next to the ones on the edge here, we're going to place a, on the left side, we're going to place a glass block, and on the block above, we're going to place another block. I guess it doesn't have to be glass. Okay, and there's already a hopper there. Okay, now we can insert all of the rails. Powered rails and regular rails. Powered rails go along all the straights here. At the end, we'll do curved rail, set it back to the top. When we get to the top, we'll do a double regular rail, then 2 solid rails, 2 powered rails to go into another line of powered rail. Okay, and now we will need a solid block here at the end of the powered rails so that they will be able to push the hopper minecart. You can power this however you want. I'll just use some blocks of redstone here to keep it simple. And make sure you use a lever here so that we are not powering into the hopper below, and that we are not having a block here that the hopper minecart can run into. Okay, and that's it for the powered rail and all of the front section. Now it's all the logic in the back. First thing we're going to do is go back 1, and then have a solid block here. This is where we will put 2 curved rails and then the powered rail. And now we need a dispenser for the input, or for the hopper minecart to be dispensed out of. And above that, we'll have the double chest above the powered rail here. If you're building the double Kartarray, you'll build it off to the side here and use a solid block here. Otherwise, if you want to keep it within 1 chunk, you put the chest right here. And then that goes into a comparator, going into a solid block to power redstone dust to deactivate a torch, and we'll have a sticky piston on the side of that torch, going into a block of redstone for a basic ether hopper clock here. And we'll just go ahead and build that real quick. Now the timing you have will be dependent on the lag in your server. 13 blocks seems to work for me in single player here, but again, times may vary. Now we'll place a piece of dust on top of each of these to finish the hopper clock, and place a redstone torch right here to activate the dispenser. Okay, now what we'll do is from the bottom here, we'll go down 2 blocks, send a couple blocks out to the back. They don't have to be transparent, any block will do. Redstone dust, and then we'll make a line of repeaters, all at max delay. And the amount of repeaters you have will depend on the delay of the server or whatever you're playing on. So in this case, I needed 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that'll be fine, just for demonstration. And now all that's left is to have the collection system for the hopper minecarts. So we'll go there. Any rail will do here. And now we need a cauldron with a lava in it. Oh. Lava in it. And a slab of any kind on top. So yeah, sure, oak slab, just because. Now 1 block up from that, we'll have a rail line going into it, and we can just curve this around from the back side here. And we can start sending the rail line up right here, doesn't matter. However you want to do this part, that is up to you. Nope, gotta go back one. And this should allow us to automatically break the hopper minecart, so I'll load some up into the system. We'll load up 3, make sure that they all work. 1, 2, 3. Nope, forgot to power the rail. We'll just place a redstone torch here. 1, 2, 3. And now we have items in our hopper minecart. So now all that's left to do is to test to make sure it works. If you want to make sure that you have the right timing in the back, I recommend you just break this rail line and build it off to the side, just so that you can see how many items are being picked up. So I'll put 2 stacks in here, and we'll see the initial startup sequence as it takes significantly longer than it should. Okay, I have too many repeaters here, so I'll just reduce that down. This one will need more. 2 stacks, so we should now end up with 40 or 80 items. 1 stack and 16. Okay, I know that this is the right amount now, so at this point I am ready to hook it up to the rest of the system. And just like that, we are ready to run. Now will need to put fuel in and wait for it to distribute to all of the furnaces, which will take some time, but other than that, it's good to go. That's all I have for today. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.